The safety, honor and welfare of your country comes first. Your own ease and comfort will come last.
You are charged with Indian Army Act Section 41, waging war against the king.
Fire! रात दिन अपने सीने विच वजदी आजादी दे राग नूं बंद कर ला। सब तो पहला मैं हिंदुस्तानी हाँ।
Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Vishal Dahiya and today we will discuss the ongoing India-China standoff in Doklam. India and China have been engaged in a standoff in the Doklam sector of Bhutan near Chumbi Valley at the corner of India-Bhutan-China Tri-Junction. This month-long border standoff has become the longest ever between the two nations. This is also the first time when Indian troops have confronted PLA on the soil of a third country in Bhutan. There are two reasons for that. One, India has a long-standing commitment to Bhutan's defense and serves as a virtual security guarantor to Bhutan through the 2007 Friendship Treaty. And second, Doklam is critical to India as it brings China even closer to the Indian border in a vulnerable location towards the 27-kilometer-long Siliguri corridor or chicken snack that connects the northeastern states to the rest of India. China has repeatedly disputed Bhutan's claims over Doklam. Beijing considers this plateau vital to fortify the dagger-shaped Chumbi Valley by piercing the Tri-Junction. So is this standoff yet another round of jostling between India and China, or the current impasse has a completely different geopolitical contours? And what impact will it have on the relations between the two Asian giants and the security scenario in the region? For more on this, today we have with us in the studio a distinguished panel of guests, Mr. Devadas, a senior journalist as well as a geopolitical and security analyst. We also have with us the security expert, Brigadier B.D. Mishra. And also with us is Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli, professor at the Center of East Asian Studies, JNU. Welcome all of you, sirs. Let me begin with you, Mr. Devadas. One very plain question which is being asked right now is, this is not the first time that the Chinese troops have done that. This kind of standoff has happened earlier also. But in this middle sector, which is known as the entire Sikkim border, around 20-22 kilometer, this is very rare. And as far as Doklam is concerned, there is a history to it. And China has been repeatedly staking claim over Bhutan. Definitely, India needs to go ahead and defend its ally Bhutan. But then, was it expected that this will continue for so long?
My take is that we should take a look at the big picture. This is not something that has come out of the blue. Of course, the intrusion or whatever you might call it in Sikkim is new. It's for the first time, as you pointed out. But the pattern of intrusions I trace to 2008 from right after the Beijing Olympics. In Ladakh and other places, the Chinese troops have been repeatedly ingressing. Also, remember, in 2009, for several months, the Chinese refused to give visas on Indian passports for citizens from Jammu and Kashmir, including the then Commander-in-Chief of the Northern Command. Now, I would take this back to 2008 when three factors started emerging, which I think are converging now.
Okay.
One is Pakistan's renewed animosity against India, which was demonstrated in the Mumbai attacks. Second was the street rage that was demonstrated in Kashmir within the valley.
Okay.
And third is China's attitude that it wants to stop India's growth and progress or stymie it while it still can
How
in
do
the
you
long
connect
term.
the
Now,
earlier twos with the third one you're pointing out?
I believe there is a connection. Even last year,
Okay.
that moment when the CPEC, I've been talking for some time now, couple of years at least, about a Sino-Pak axis. We should not be looking at Kashmir and the challenges to national security only through the prism of Kashmir. I think that is a mistake. It is a Sino-Pak axis. It was even in 99. Please remember where General Musharraf was when the Kargil intrusions were discovered. He was sitting in Peching and he stayed there for a while. Now, I would take this back to because of the Sino-Pak axis, I would take this back to 1965. We should look at what is happening in Doklam in the perspective of what happened in 1965, and I'm specifically referring to the Kutch intrusions and the Kutch skirmishes, which preceded what happened in Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay, so you're saying that this is a Sino-Pak alignment which India should be wary of, and this is not an isolated incident. Let me
I
bring
think
in,
it should have been wary of for the last 7 or 8 years. It's more than that now.
It's more than that now. Let me bring in Brigadier Mishra here. Brigadier, if you look at the entire scenario and what Mr. David is pointing out, if this was in the offing, then could there have been some preventive measure? Because the border dispute with China is an ongoing thing. It is something which has been going on for years now, and we've not been able to come to a concrete conclusion, specifically with respect to the northern and the eastern sector.
Well, when we talk of Indo-Chinese standoff and all that, it takes me back to 1962. I was a company commander, and I fought in that war. I had the honor of defending my country. Whatsoever might have been the tactical and war front reverses, and those were not attributable to the army actions because we were not prepared. So I recall that 20th October to 20th November 1962, I was a company commander. But today I'm happy. I'm very happy. Actually, what you said that we should have taken precaution or we should have foreseen it or anticipated it. You see, even today, leave alone Panchsheel and all those things, even today, nowhere India is an aggressor. Nowhere.
Nowhere.
And even line of actual control, I have been battalion commander in Poonch. I was on the line of actual control. I commanded my battalion 1978 to 81. And of course, I dominated the area. I had 9 posts which were dominated by Pakistanis. But I maintained my discipline of my forces, and we did not. But when they did anything, we retaliated, and many times over. Here, since India's policy that and China's most unpredictable, the Xi Jinping comes, he goes and he sits at Mahatma Gandhi's, Samadhi. Mr. Modi, he makes him sit down on that
on the swing.
Chabutra, on that platform, and he sits there. But then what is happening there? His troops have moved.
At the same time,
most unpredictable. But this time, even then, a brigade was moved in that sector. Even this time, the troops have been beefed up. And you must have seen our company commander, a Sikh boy, captain, telling that, the other side chap that, look, you are very senior, but what you are doing is wrong. And then the psychological warfare of China, which is going on, psychological warfare, it has come down to actually pushing, pulling, and making statement and global times and all that. It is a bigger part of this psychological warfare.
Okay.
But our troops, I'm very glad they are not doing. And let me tell you, even if the balloon goes up, today the war front will be different than 1962.
Okay, it'll be different from 1962. Now that's a taking it a bit too far. But let me bring in Mr. Kondapalli here, and I would like to ask you on this aspect that in terms of agreements which have been there, China is now citing the 1890 agreement, saying that we have the rights over the Doklam Plateau. Bhutan says that it was not between us and you, it was between us and India. And there are other agreements between China and Bhutan, China and India, specifically in 2012, 98, 99, which say that all border disputes have to be resolved through dialogue, one. Two, by taking into consideration the other players as well. And in this case, it would be Bhutan. So is there, some sort of activity at play from China that they are misinterpreting something? Or is this a very complicated situation in terms of who believes that they are right?
Well, it dates back to the 19th century when the states were expanding into areas which are, loose in nature. The Northeast Frontier Agency, Northwest Frontier Agency by the British Empire. The Qing dynasty under the warlords, Chao Erfeng, he was expanding the empire in Tibet, Sichuan, and other areas, the young husband expeditions, the various others. So, so there is the expansion of the states in those areas that has happened. At the same time, they have also tried to put up a legal basis for this. So, the 1890 treaty, which was signed between British as well as the Qing dynasty in China. Then there is the 1914 Shimla Agreement between the British, the Tibetans and the nationalist China. But we come into a problem with the interpretation of these. 1890 treaty was signed, but not the delineation, demarcation has not happened.
It has not happened, specifically in the middle sector.
In the Sikkim sector.
Sikkim sector.
It has not happened. On the other hand, the 1913-14 Shimla Pact, it was initialed by Chen Yifan, the nationalist representative. It was signed by Longchen Shatra of the Tibetan side and by McMahon. Yet today the Chinese say that this is an imperialist, forgetting for the moment the 1890 treaty of between British and the Qing. They also selectively ignore the 1885 treaty between France-controlled Vietnam and the Qing dynasty at the time. So now the border treaty between Vietnam and China is based on that 1885. So by saying that these are all unequal treaties, but selectively implementing say 1890 but not the 1914, I think there is some double standard in this.
Okay, so it's a selective interpretation, it seems. Let me take the issue to a new aspect, and that aspect is that it is being said that one of the key objectives China has in mind this time around was to test India's resolve to defend its ally Bhutan's borders and its security perspective and defense perspectives. Now, this is not the first time that this is happening. If you look at the entire South Asian region theater, then China has been also meddling into Nepal's domestic politics. The CPEC you pointed out, Sri Lanka being drowned in debt over the Chinese investments, and then Pakistan too, and then China also wanting to go ahead and fund the Bangladeshi ports as well. So is this the larger picture is more of concern to India than that plateau out there? Its strategic significance obviously holds a lot of value, but the larger picture seems to be more difficult.
I completely agree with you. I think that encirclement, which has been in process for a while, and we saw it move ahead on the eve of the BRICS summit with President Xi's visit to Dhaka. These are things that we should take very seriously. That there is an emerging strategy which has been emerging to my mind for the last decade or so. As I said, after the Beijing Olympics, I think they got down to this sort of hard-knuckled approaches. And I believe that too much time has been spent looking at things through the prism of Panchsheel and goodwill, and we are never the aggressors, so why should we bother with somebody else's, because obviously they would not be aggressors either. But there is a definite strategy. To my mind, it's a very long-term strategy.
Okay.
China sees that India and China would dominate the 21st century, as many others do. Many Western analysts have said so too. And they see this as an opportunity, or they're looking for opportunity perhaps, to stymie India's progress and its ability to at least be a regional power within South Asia.
Okay.
And to my mind, this is a very important consideration and objective for our own national foreign policy.
So to protect our interest, we will have to take that into consideration. Let me bring in Mr. Kondapalli here. Mr. Kondapalli, are we dealing with a different China as of now? A less cautious, you would say, more muscular, more interested in pursuing its own interest, as Mr. David was pointing out that, enough of the Panchsheel thing. We should put forward our, best foot forward and try and protect our own interest, specifically with respect to our neighbors and our relations with them.
Well, every country will go through that zigzag policy of, strategic outreach as well as contraction. In the case of China, they have actually said this in official documents. The May 2015 white paper on the national defense, they mentioned that Chinese armed forces should protect the interests of China abroad. And in November 2014, President Xi Jinping, addressing the 4th Foreign Affairs Work Conference, mentioned that the Foreign Ministry has to protect the interests of China abroad. So in other words, the Foreign Ministry and the military are now showcasing, for example, they have these 3 warfares: legal, media, psychological warfare, which was initiated in somewhere in 2005. So they push this. So you have Global Times, arguing for whatever it had on Sikkim,
and several other think tanks
and
making several statements.
And in the legal sense, they're saying that India is entering into a third country, forgetting for the moment that the Chinese have entered into Korean War in 1950, 51, 53. So, and then the psychological war, saying that India cannot really rise above, and so on. So the 3 warfares have been implemented in this process at the moment. So this is a kind of outreach the Chinese state has been implementing. So I see Sikkim Bhutan trijunction is basically a handiwork of that larger picture.
Okay, it's a handiwork larger picture. Let me bring in Brigadier Mishra out here. Brigadier Mishra, you made a very significant point in the initial stage, saying that it's going to be a different scenario altogether if at all push comes to shove. And all of you are talking about that psychological warfare which is being implemented by China. And as Mr. Kondapalli pointed out, that was a policy which was implemented in 2005. So if you look at the entire scenario from the security perspective, how difficult the situation is right now for India, specifically with respect to this standoff, and what it might spill over to the other 2 sectors, the northern and the eastern sector, the Kashmir and the Arunachal Pradesh?
I will mention one more point and answer your question. You see, today, China has become a big bully. The kind of problem they have, around them, which they have created themselves, and mostly territorial, be it on land or be at sea, and probably air also might come in somewhere. So, this approach of theirs, probably maybe their 18th Party Congress is there, and Communist Party, always thinks that our leader should be a strong man. And what can be better demonstration of strength than doing all this? So for Xi Jinping, probably this also is a motivation that let me be a very strong man. Nobody has done that nobody has come up to Chumbi Valley. And probably this man, he'll put his field artillery gun just on the road where where your cart is going to northeast. So all these combined, probably the philosophy of Mao Zedong, power comes out of the barrel of the gun. They are following that. And arm twisting, bullying, and browbeating, these are tactics. Now, if the balloon goes up, if the chips are down, you see what will happen. If the war escalates, I mean, the threshold of all-out war and where the nuclear weapons can be used, it's very high.
No, that's it. That's taking it too far. But
because there the losses are assured mutual, assured mutual. So therefore, no nation can afford. Right. Then it comes to conventional warfare, Rivaiti ladai. Now, conventional warfare, how will it go? Their tactics in 1962 was hold on the front, have the waves, outflank, and cut off. These were the tactics.
These were the tactics.
And we were not prepared for that. Why we were not prepared? Let me tell you very frankly, because every soldier knew Hindi Chini bhai bhai is there. That atmosphere was there. But today, we are exactly prepared for that. Even the holding on front, even the flanks, even the rear, even the reinforcement, even the guns, even the rockets, and even the bullets, these are ready. So I don't think, Vietnam is very small country. He was saying, he said that Vietnam is, but even there, these men, these chaps, they got bloody nose.
Okay, so that's one aspect of it. But you spoke about the Sino-Pak, factor out here, and that was Brigadier Mishra was talking about the conventional warfare and the push comes to shove. If you look at it from a different perspective, that's the Sino-Pak perspective and how it might affect our security interest as far as the state of Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, our northeastern states are concerned, because we share a 3,000, almost 3,500 kilometer long border with China. So how is it going to impact the entire security situation in those borderline areas?
I think it's a very, very important issue that we should focus on very sharply. Let us recognize the fact that Chinese troops are already in the state of Jammu and Kashmir on the Pakistan side. That the CPEC is in fact a Chinese project and within the territory of Pakistan. Let us also recognize that Pakistan is virtually under the influence, at least on foreign policy and military matters, of China, and has been increasingly from February 1963, when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto first became the foreign minister of Pakistan and took this line. It has been a strategic outreach, and it has been a consistent way forward for both the countries. I believe that we need to take on board what is happening. Also expect from China the Chanakyan strategies, Dam, Dand, Bhed, all of that. They are doing that.
Using all the means.
And I believe that we need to hold firm. We need to, because their entire strategies for the moment, their immediate strategy is you must withdraw from Doklam. Now, the issue is much larger. When they say that you have gone in to a third country's territory, we have to point out you are already in in our territory, because Jammu and Kashmir is entirely our territory. And if Chinese troops are in Pakistan-controlled areas, and they already control part of the territory of Jammu and Kashmir, let us point out these things.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Kondapalli here. I'll come to you, Brigadier Mishra, quickly. Mr. Kondapalli, on this aspect, on the effect of this entire development on the internal security or our security concerns in the borderline states, do you agree with what Mr. David is saying, that we have to take some countermeasures to ensure that our interests are secured in terms of security aspect?
First, the ground situation in the border areas. The nuclear factor is ruled out because both India and China have a no first use doctrine at the conventional level and sub-conventional level. At the conventional level, China can mobilize about 28 divisions roughly, and about 4 to 5 divisions in the Sikkim-Bhutan sector, and roughly about 8 or 9 in the Arunachal sector, and roughly about 3 in the middle sector, Barahoti, in Uttaranchal, Himachal, and in the western sector, something like 14 divisions. So in all, about 28 to 30 divisions they could mobilize through these narrow passages. Because of the high ground that Tibet has, it is easier for them to kind of push through that kind of force. They currently have about, say, 62, 63 divisions, out of which they have to muster about half of the strength, which is actually difficult, but they have substantial backup in terms of logistics and so on and so forth. So in other words, they could mobilize. But in the Sikkim-Bhutan sector, which is where we are in the current standoff, the Chinese face substantial problems because we are standing on high ground.
India has an advantage.
So in other words, the casualties would be roughly about 33,000 on the other side.
Okay.
So in other words, the Chinese would take a back seat in the conventional level. At the sub-conventional level, it is quite possible that the 158 monasteries that we have in the Trans-Himalayan belt will be under stress with the current standoff between India and China, not just in the Sikkim-Bhutan, but also across the spectrum. the Tibet factor, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So subconventional factor is the one which we need to worry more
which
about.
we need to worry about. Brigadier Mishra, one important point, you spoke about PSYOPs and how these statements are being made by several think tanks through their media, state-owned medias and all that. There were several countermeasures which were taken by the Indian government as well. For example, allowing the Tibetan government in exile to go ahead and use the Pangong Lake in Ladakh, which resulted in a retort from China, wherein they said, don't play the Dalai Lama card, don't play the Tibet card, and they responded again by blocking the Mansarovar Yatra and all that. So do you see this also going a little forward, one step ahead, these kind of measures and countermeasures taking place?
Well, I'll comment on certain military points, and then I'll come back to.
Okay, we are running short of time, Brigadier Mishra, if you can make it quick.
Okay. Now, first I want to tell you that Chinese threat saying that, look, they will come to Kashmir as we are going to Bhutan. Now, what is left? Now, they are in Gilgit, they are in Baltistan, their cantonment has come up. 19,000 troops are deployed on OBOR here. Right from Xinjiang to Gwadar, and these are Pakistani troops, and Chinese will never trust Pakistani troops, and they would not like these chaps to guard their roads. So 19,000 troops are required for that purpose. Then if they come to Kotli, Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, what do they achieve? Because that is an area where they can't expand their weapon system, neither they can deploy. So that is all, I think, talking just in psychological warfare, that, parameter. That's one. Secondly, now this, they are saying that Kailash Mansarovar, they could go via Lipu Lake. I have been through, to Kailash Mansarovar, through that Lipu Lake. They say because there's no quarrel. Now here there's a quarrel. So it is all semantics. It is all semantics.
All semantics.
And it is war of nerves. It is war of nerves. And I think today our leadership luckily is standing up to that.
So we need to hold our nerves. Clearly it seems so. So as our panelists were also pointing out, it seems that the Doklam standoff has added to the growing list of strains in the India-China relationship, which has always been a mix of cooperation and competition. On the issue of border disputes, both sides have done well so far, with not a single bullet being fired since 1975, despite dealing with more than 3,500 kilometer long undemarcated frontier. This time around, both nations seem determined to stand their ground, as in the case of previous standoffs. Both sides also seem to believe that they have the necessary channels to peacefully resolve the dispute as well. However, we will have to wait and watch as to what happens next and what might come in from the other side and what might be our countermeasures to that. We'll come back again with a different topic and a different set of guests next week. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.